How do you unite a continent that's completely torn apart? Well, today we're going to talk about the guy who did just that. We're diving into the amazing story of Chandragupta Maurya, a true underdog who came from absolutely nowhere to build India's very first great empire.
Okay, so picture this. Before Chandragupta, India was just this messy patchwork quilt of little kingdoms, all constantly at war with each other. No one was in charge. But after him, boom! For the first time ever, it was one unified subcontinent, all under a single powerful rule. So how in the world did one guy, starting from basically nothing, pull off something so huge? Well, his story is just incredible. It's all about ambition, brilliant strategy, and get this, a final move that is so bizarre, so shocking, that historians are still talking about it.
All right, let's get into it. We've got to start at the beginning, right? And what a beginning it is. We're talking about a guy whose early life is so shrouded in mystery, he almost sounds like a character from a myth. Yeah, see, most kings you hear about were born into royalty. Not this guy. Chandragupta was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He wasn't destined for any of this. He literally rose to power through sheer talent and ambition, and that's what makes his story just so remarkable.
But you know, being smart and ambitious isn't always enough, is it? You need a break. And for Chandragupta, his big break, the real turning point, came when he met someone, a mentor, who was not only brilliant, but also had a serious score to settle. And that mentor's name was Chanakya. This guy was a total genius, a political mastermind. But he'd been publicly humiliated by the king at the time, the Nanda king. And Chanakya wasn't the type to let that go. Oh no, he swore an oath that he would burn that entire dynasty to the ground. So, when Chanakya meets this young, ambitious kid, Chandragupta, a light bulb goes off. He sees him as the perfect weapon, the perfect tool to get his revenge. He saw a leader with just limitless potential. And so, Chanakya takes him under his wing. He trains him in everything. I mean everything. Statecraft, military tactics, diplomacy, how to run the whole show. It was this incredible partnership, the brains and the brawn. And together, well, they were about to turn India completely upside down.
All right, so with their alliance forged and their skills sharpened, they set their sights on the biggest prize in India, the Nanda kingdom.
Now, the Nanda dynasty was super powerful and had tons of money. But the thing is, they were also deeply unpopular. People hated them. They were known for their heavy taxes and just oppressive rule. And for Chandragupta and Chanakya, that public anger was the perfect opening they needed.
And once they got going, man, their rise was fast. After a few initial tries that didn't quite work, they finally overthrew the Nanda dynasty around 321 BCE. But they weren't done. Oh no. Next, Chandragupta turns his army west and goes head-to-head with one of Alexander the Great's generals, a guy named Seleucus, and wins.
And the deal they made afterward is fascinating. Chandragupta gets huge chunks of territory, basically parts of modern-day Afghanistan and Pakistan. And what does Seleucus get? 500 war elephants. Think of them as the tanks of the ancient world. This was a huge deal. It wasn't just a land grab. It was Chandragupta proving that his new Indian empire could go toe-to-toe with the biggest powers in the world.
Okay, so conquering a bunch of land is one thing, but actually running an empire, that's a whole different ballgame. And this is where you really see the genius of these two men.
They had a playbook, an ancient Indian manual on pretty much everything: how to run a state, economic policy, military strategy. It's called the Arthashastra, and it's basically a masterclass in how to gain and keep power. Seriously, it's this incredibly detailed guide on how to run a kingdom. And following that playbook, they built their administration on some key ideas. We're talking a centralized government, a really efficient tax system. They even had a huge network of spies to keep an eye on things and prevent corruption. The state controlled all the major industries, and they had a formal court system. This whole setup was like a well-oiled machine that kept the empire running. So let's just recap. At this point, Chandragupta has built this massive, seemingly invincible empire. He has everything he could ever want: power, wealth, security, and an army that was just enormous. I mean, ancient Greek sources say he had over 600,000 soldiers. That's a staggering number for the time.
This army was the foundation of his rule. It let him defend his massive borders and keep everything in order. He was, for all intents and purposes, one of the most powerful men on earth.
And then, he just walked away from it all. I'm not kidding. In a move that nobody saw coming,
he gave it all up.
Yeah, he got deeply influenced by Jainism. So what did he do? He abdicated the throne, handed it over to his son, Bindusara, and then traveled south. And there, this man who had conquered kingdoms and commanded a huge army became a monk. He ended his life by performing salakana, which is a Jain ritual of fasting until death. Just incredible.
So let's talk about his legacy, because that transformation from warrior king to humble monk is what makes him such a fascinating figure.
I mean, his legacy is just massive. He didn't just found an empire, he basically created the concept of a united India. The systems he and Chanakya set up were so good they lasted for centuries. And he also paved the way for his grandson, who you've probably heard of, Ashoka the Great.
There's a saying that sums it up perfectly. It's not just that he ruled India. He really taught India how to be ruled. Ultimately, history shows that true leadership isn't about your family name. It's about vision, it's about strategy, and maybe, just maybe, it's also about knowing when to let it all go.